Welcome to Running Wild with Christine, Sex, Success, and Other Slippery Rabbit Holes. Episode 23, Women on Top with Nell, Grecian. Nell is a blogger and started a blog called The Man Ban in 2014, which was meant to be a diary to keep track of a 6-week vacation from men. It is now a whole new website called Women on Top, and its aim is to provide you with the hottest guides on all things sex and dating related, as well as combating sexism, smashing the patriarchy, normalizing sex, and empowering women. Hi, Nell.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm super good. How are you? I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
I know, I'm so stoked. We have like one of those very modern Instagram friendships.
Oh my god, yeah, we're like cyber besties.
And then like today prepping for the podcast, we're like, oh, hi, yeah, this is I guess the first time we're actually meeting.
It's so weird that I feel like we're almost, it's like we're in person.
Yeah, it is.
It's alien. I love it. I'm so here for it.
Technology. So to give a bit of background to our listeners, do you mind telling me a bit about how you got to be a columnist for Slutty Girl Problems and contributing to HuffPost on these topics? Like, what's your story?
Yes. So after I started the Man Ban, obviously it started off after I swore myself off men, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, didn't last very long. After that, it was just sort of writing about sex and all of the people that I was shagging and dating, whatever else was going on in my love life at the time.
Preach.
And I got picked up by Slutty Girl Problems on Twitter. They found a link to one of my articles on there and then asked if I'd do a couple of pieces. It was actually a piece that I had written called Is Bigger Always Better?
Yeah.
And they asked if they could have that one. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And after that, I just stuck around for a little while.
That's nice.
And then with a slightly different story to the Huffington Post, I really, really love like crime documentaries and dramas. I know, it's bizarre. And I was watching American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
And it's such a good series. And I was just obsessed with it. But I could not believe the sexism that Marsha Clark, one of the jurors, she faced. It was just crazy. So I wrote something about it. I mean, it was small, it was like 550 words or something.
Yeah.
Wrote about it, and then I was like, you know what, I quite like this. So I just like sent it off to a couple of people, and someone at the Huffington Post was like, yeah, we'll take it. Amazing. And then they just asked me to do a regular blogging thing.
That's amazing.
And that was my first, like, I say big break, but it was just like the best thing that had ever happened to me at that point.
Yay. And then
it
now
was amazing.
Yeah, like, and I'm really loving reading your blog because there's always pieces about very different topics and different, like you have as much like sort of, you know, this is how to excel at blowjobs, but also like super serious, you know, I think I even read one of your articles about Brexit and all kinds of different things. So what's your main goal with Women on Top? Like, what do you hope that it achieves?
I think my main sort of underlying goal with everything is sex and normalising sex and sort of changing the way that people view and talk about sex. And I think everything that I write about always is from like a woman or like a women's or a woman in sex's point of view. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's really fluffy, like you said, like how to give, you know, the best sex of your life. And sometimes it's much more serious, but I think they all sort of follow the same voice and theme, and it's all really, and you know, you've seen my Instagram. Yeah. It's all very sex oriented. So I feel like that's my main issue that I'm trying to tackle.
And honestly, I feel like it's kind of a difficult balance to strike up anyway, between the clicky, you know, listicles stuff and the serious stuff, because you have to sort of be able to market yourself whilst still doing like sending the message that you want to send. So that's why
100%.
I really love your Instagram for that, because I think that you have a good balance between like you know, stuff that just looks good and it's like clickable, and then, you know, content. But basically you and I actually connected over my book, because I sent you a copy to review, and you said some really nice things about it. So
I absolutely loved it.
Tore through it on one day on a yacht in Croatia. Can we just address it?
But doesn't that sound so unbelievably middle class? It's fucking ridiculous. I assure you that's not how it was. It sounds so much fancier. But no, like I started reading, and you know what it's like when you're on holiday, like reading is all you want to do.
Yeah.
And I just started reading it, and that was it. Just couldn't put it down. Like, honestly, for me, it's like a Christmas miracle if I don't break for food.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where I was like, oh shit, it's fucking lunchtime.
Yay!
Someone's got the wine. And then I obviously had to take a little break, but then, you know, I was straight back on it.
And I think, honestly, the book like just comes with wine. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. It's one of those books that it's like a must do. You have to read it while you're drinking and smoking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't recommend it for health reasons, but, you know, if you must. But for me, it was really entertaining to see that you liked it, because I thought you might, because we agree on a lot of things. But then again, like we were saying about the sort of clickable, likable stuff, I always say that I have a really hard time marketing it, because it's easy to market the sex stuff, but then that's not the bulk of it.
Yeah.
And so how do you're like, okay, you're going to like the sexy stuff, but like the personal, bigger questions that are in there are kind of difficult to, you never know how someone's going to feel.
Yeah.
But
I think you're so right, and those are the things that make it so hard to market, but so easy to read, because those are the bits that make it so relatable, and people are like, oh shit, yeah, I felt like that. I know what she feels like. I've met people like that.
Yeah.
So those are the bits they're like key to the story, really.
Yeah.
But trying to like put it across to someone who hasn't read the book, it's so difficult.
Yeah, it really is. But I'm glad that it came through. I was reading your review. So you sent me the email like, the review is up. And I was just like, oh my God. And I was at lunch with a friend. And he's like, read it out loud. And I was like, what if it's shit? She hated it. And I'm at lunch in front of you reading it. And I read it, and he was like, that's amazing. And like high-fived me and whatever. But for me, it was really interesting, because when I sort of reached out and he was like, hey, would you mind doing a review? You were like, actually, I've been trying to write my own memoir over the last few, is it months or years?
So I started it about 3 years ago, and then like basically something happened, and it, like the first like 11,000 words got stolen. So I just dropped it, and I was like, whatever, it's not meant to be, like left it. And then in, I think maybe February or March this year, I just like, there was something, and I was lying in bed one night and I was thinking about something, and I was like, that is a really fucking funny story. Like I should probably write that down.
Yeah.
And I did. And then that was it. I just sort of like, it all flowed back, and I finished it.
How does it feel?
It actually, do you know what? It feels amazing. And when I first finished it, I was a bit stressed, and I think I had a bit of like PTSD, because it taken so long to write it, and it was just like, right, okay, it's done. Like now what? So I like sent it off to be edited and whatever else. And it's only recently, like, I mean, literally in the last week or so, that I'm like, oh my God, like I've actually written a book. Like, don't you know who I am? Author Nell.
I can relate.
And now all I want to do is go out and celebrate.
Of course. And then like those celebrations turn into more chapters for future books.
Exactly. A very happy cycle.
Are you worried about that? Like, this is where I'm at right now, is that I have to make stupid decisions going forward so that I would have things to write about.
Well, no, I'm totally with you, because so much of my book is like, it's like what came before. So it's like the like prequel to Woman on Top. So it's like before I met my boyfriend or anything like that. So it is basically lots and lots of stories about me when I was single, and, you know, how I like, you know, lived my life and that kind of thing. And I've literally used up every single one of my stories in this book.
Oh,
so
gosh.
if it comes to the time where I'm like, oh, okay, I'll give, you know, book 2 a go, then I just don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to do some crazy fucking shit with my boyfriend.
Yes. I mean, I'm not so worried, because mine ended, like the timeline of the book ends in like April of 2017 or something. So
you've got some time.
And the last year and a half have been pretty freaking crazy. So I'm okay. But I did worry about that at that time, because you're just like, oh, okay, what now? And what if, you know, what am I going to do? Because I remember, dating Liam and being so fucking stale in everything creative.
Yeah.
I think that's not just representative of being in a relationship. That's representative of being in a shitty relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
But so tell me, why the memoir? Like, before, because I think that's something that people ask me and I never know how to answer. So, like, what was it about your story that you think, what made you go, right, this is worth telling, and this, or this is what people need to hear, not in an egocentric way, but in a, like, you know what I mean?
I think without sounding really cliched, it was like I came to a realization that I had made a journey, and I'd gone from being this, like, I've always been super into sex and, like, unafraid of having sex, but I was quite, like, shy when it came to talking about sex, like literally everybody else is. And the way that society views sex is very much the same as it was back then. And I don't know what it was, but, like, through years of getting older and sleeping with more people and having, like, awful dates and meeting horrible men and nasty girls and that kind of thing, that's what it was. And then one day I was just like, oh, okay, I view it in a completely different way now. And so I think that's what started it, and I was just going to write about how I've sort of come to that place. But I'm very lucky in the fact that all of those, bad boys and bad girls have also contributed to some really, really funny and really, I don't know, like, stories people can learn from and relate to, much like your book. So I could just throw those in as well. And I find that once you start writing these, like, stupid and hilarious stories down, they just keep coming. Like, other ones kept popping up and I'm like, oh my God, I'd totally forgotten that I'd slept with that guy. But let's write it down. And it all just, like, was one big, like, gush of stories. And that was it in a couple of months. Like 75,000 words.
I remember. But no, I think it's interesting because, I mean, it's funny because 2 weeks ago I spoke with Steph, who is a sex writer who, didn't enjoy sex for most of her life. And that was an interesting conversation because, I have. But it's funny with you because we, I think, have a similar sort of background story to always having been open and curious about it and maybe just, like, less vocal. And do you see sort of, like, because I know my answer to this, but do you see a massive benefit now to being more vocal about it? Like, what is your main change that you see by the fact of you just being this open? Because you give a lot of yourself out to the public as well.
But I think, somebody has to like pave the way and show people that actually it's okay to talk about sex. It's literally the most natural thing that people can do. So the fact that people are so scared of talking about it, I just think it's absolutely bizarre. So no, I'm more than happy to, write about my shags on Instagram and tell people in person, I'm like, sorry, I'm late. I was in bed with my boyfriend. Because it's just sex. That's what it is. It's just a normal human behavioral. It's just sex.
I asked this question to everyone who is on my podcast about sex. How does your family feel about you being this open?
So when I first started writing my blog, my mum and dad used to read it. And then one day they were both like, okay, we're going to stop, because obviously I was living in London on my own, and they were like, we just don't want to hear about your sexual escapades all over London. And I was like, it's probably right. So, I mean, they support me, and, like, when I've been writing my book, they've been amazing. I'm not sure they'll read it. I think my mum probably will. It's probably a lot easier for a mum to read about her daughter sleeping with lots of random men. But I'm not certain my dad will. But I know that my dad's lovely fiancée, she is quite keen to read it. And I think she'll tell him all the bits that he sort of needs to know or would be interested in anyway.
And in general, like, because this is sort of what you do on a daily basis, like, when you're hanging out with, like, family and friends confounded, like, do they go, oh, that's just Nell being Nell? Like, what's,
Yeah, I mean, I think they're, like, quite used to me being such a hoe and being so, like, outright about it. I'm like, yeah, this is what's happening. And I've always, like, my responses to their problems and their questions and my answers and everything is always very sex-based. So they know They know.
Do you think that comes from their
education?
education? Like, did they bring you up to be this open, or is it kind of like a wild card for them? Did they not expect this?
Yeah. So I think, especially on my dad's side of the family, like all of the women are very like confident and sassy, and they're very sexually open. And you know, we've talked about it lots. Like, it's nothing, because I mean, obviously it's not.
Yeah.
But we've had like proper, frank conversations about sex and like pregnancy and abortion and all this kind of stuff. All the kind of stuff that people would normally be afraid to talk to their parents and families about. So yeah, honestly, they've been pretty chilled. Like, I'm fortunate to have grown up like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are like the little bits and bobs that society sort of drilled into them, where they're like, oh, well, like, I've heard about this girl, and, you know, she slept with this guy after a night out and she never knew his name, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that was me. It was me. I've been that girl. We've all been that girl. So once you speak to them about it and you're like, listen, if she isn't hurting anybody, then who gives a fuck? She's just living her life.
Exactly. I cannot agree more. And I think that for me, it's really nice to hear that, because obviously you know about my parents through the book. Not as open. Very supportive, lovely.
Always.
But not that open. I think mom's coming around slowly. But it's interesting to see that generational gap for me, especially. And this is why the last couple of podcasts have been very much about what we can do to make future generations have different problems, at least not these same problems that we're having. And so I think it's funny to watch it back, because we're still very much sort of on the youthful scale of like life experience, being in our 20s. But it's funny for me, because I feel like as much as there will be a lot of educating to do and a lot of focus on, you know, sex education and like the way that society frames it, there's also an interesting personal side to speaking to older people than me. I'll remember, this was so funny. I have this like situation a lot now that the book's out, because my friends know what it is, and like, but then I was at a gallery. It was one of my friends' mom's painting shop or like show, and his grandmother was there, and he introduced me, and he was like, hey, this is my friend Christine, she wrote a book, like she's an author, blah blah blah, like gleaming. And I was like, oh, thanks, blah blah blah.
Love it.
And then the grandma and I just sat there chatting, and she's like, so what's your book about? And I always sort of like curate that answer depending on who's asking, you know. And so I said, well, look, it's my little attempt at, you know, making the society that I live in a little more vulnerable and a little more open. And and I felt comfortable with her. So I said, it's got a lot to do with women's empowerment and, you know, the rights that we now choose to fight for, and how we don't, you know. Anyway, I sort of kind of danced around the topic, but in a way that she sort of got it. And she was like, I think that's so important. You're so cute. She was like, we fought so freaking hard, not for you guys to stop now. And it was just like this shift.
Oh my God, exactly. She sounds amazing.
Yeah, but you didn't expect it.
Podcast.
Yeah, exactly. It was in French, unfortunately, but if she spoke English, I would. But yeah, I was just like, that's amazing, because you sort of, we keep being very shy about this stuff, even me. And I'm like, why do I keep doing this? Like, can I not just stop saying, oh, there's a lot of adult content in it, and say like, yeah, it's about sex.
But I totally get that. I find it so bizarre sometimes. And I'm like, oh, like, what's your book about? And I'm like, well, it's somewhat of a memoir. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? The whole point of me writing this book is to like normalize sex and get people talking about it, and I won't even do it when I'm like talking to my parents' friends. So I'm like, hold on, scratch that. It's all about fucking. And then they're like, oh, right, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. But it's such an exercise, and I think it's important to have these conversations out on this podcast, because it could come off as like very natural, and I do talk about it very well on the podcast because it's a safe space, quote unquote. Like, this is what it's designed for. There's sex in the title. Like, you're not going to listen to it if you don't want to hear about it. But at the same time, it's still very difficult to do in society, and this is why we do it, because it's uncomfortable.
It's bizarre though, like, and it's something that you don't even think about until you're actually doing it, until you're trying to explain it in a way like where you're not saying sex, and it's just like, why am I doing this?
I just like, I'm like, what the hell? We have so far to go, like as a society in general. And
also, why lie? They're gonna read the book. It's gonna come out, and they'll be like, "Oh shit!"
Do you know what? Actually, I'm gonna prepare you for when your book comes out, because I wish someone told me this. So I'm using dating apps, obviously, as like part of a marketing, effort, because it works really well. Like I don't have to match anyone, and they just like click it and have a look. But I can't lie anymore. I can't lie on dates. It's over. I can't lie about anything because they can just read it and it's out there, and I'm just like,
yeah, well, that's it. There are no secrets anymore.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's like stories I chose not to pick, like, because the book's pretty long, but still it could have been longer. I didn't use every single one of my stories. But still, like, sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, so we made this decision because, and then I'm like, if they read the book, they'll be like, you bullshitter. I'm just like, that's not mine.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
oh, I love that.
Forced total honesty at every turn, just in case.
Maybe in your like online dating profile in your bio that you should just have a link to the book and be like, just read it and then hit me up. Once you know what I'm about, come back.
But that's almost it. Like, my bio is a link to my website, and like, I don't know what much else to say. Like,
it's all in there. It's all in there. Go read. Do your research.
But also, I went on a date last week, and the guy like prefaced we sat down and like had a obviously like small first date chit chat, blah blah, and then he's like, I have to confess this. I was like, oh my god, what?
What's coming next?
Yeah, I was like, 17 children, 3 ex-wives, like, what is it? And he's like, I read half your book. We like matched like 2 days ago, so I was like,
oh my god, that's quick work.
Okay. And he's like, yeah, I just felt like I needed to tell you because I didn't want to like just have you repeat and then like say something that I knew but you didn't tell me. And I was like, yeah, no, good for you for not hiding it, but also shit. Now I've got to like deal with that.
Shit.
Yeah, because it's such an imbalance. Like, people know everything about you, and you're like, hey.
Yeah, and I'm almost like, now I've written my book, I'm so excited for like my best friends to read it, and like I'm really excited for like strangers to read it, because I'm like, they don't know me, they can do whatever. But then the people that are like in between, the people that I'm like sort of friends with and like acquaintances, yes. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do when they read it and they come up to me and they're like, oh yeah, so I read your book and this came up and blah blah blah. I'm going to be like, well, yeah, ha ha ha.
But you know what? Do you know what happens? They either don't tell you, and you're like, okay, so you don't know, so you're fine.
Yeah. Also, the people that I've written about, I'm really scared for them to be like, so I read your review on me.
Are they going to recognize themselves?
They will know who they are, but I haven't put any names or anything in the book. So I know and they know, and like the people who knew our relationship, and knew us together will know. But for the most part, I don't think it's that obvious.
Yeah, because for mine, there was like 3 or 4 people that I knew might pick up the book and be like, holy fuck, that's me.
Yeah.
But the hordes of the other ones, there's no way, like, I say one sentence about them. They could be any one of them.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, there are so many like little snippets of like little shags and little dates and stuff. I'm like, they will never know.
No.
And they probably won't read the book. Like, it's not like I speak to these people. I don't know their last names. Where am I going to find them?
I know. But it does cross your mind. But I think that's like that's the least interesting, like return on someone reading your book. You're like, okay, cool, whatever. But the in-between people, I find that it like helps you do this nice little cleanup in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where people are like, yes, I'm on board. Because there is always a message. Like, none of this is at least anyway in my book, none of it was meant to be in your face, this is my adventurous life or whatever. It was always with like a point behind it. Like,
yeah, there's always a subcontext.
That's right. And so it's very interesting to have those subcontext conversations. That for me is interesting.
Yeah. No, and I'm definitely keen for that. So hopefully that's what people take from it. and not just that I was a massive slut that lived in London.
I will read it and let you know.
Yeah, let me know, Han.
But no, I mean, I'm fairly confident knowing your writing through your blog that it won't be like that. But it's yeah, I just think that it's very funny how our generation seems to gravitate. Like, if you look at some of our blog posts, like our respective blog posts, they're the same topic. Like, you have one on number of sexual partners, which is episode 1 of this podcast. Stride of Pride.
Yeah.
So many in my book.
All over it.
Yeah, like, and I think it's because it's like basically the zeitgeist of our generation.
Yeah.
Because we
also,
are
I
free.
think mine, like, it's quite funny and it's like quite satirical and it's meant to read quite funny. So I hope that sort of like takes the edge off when people are like, oh, actually, yeah, she said I was shit in bed, but you know, I said it in a funny way, so who cares, hun?
And also,
laugh it off.
People change. Like, if you were once bad in bed doesn't mean that you're going to be bad in bed forever. And also,
and I make that point.
You're bad in bed for me. Maybe you're great in bed for someone else. Like,
exactly. Not everybody is sexually compatible.
No, I'm sure I was the shittest shag for some people.
Yeah. I mean, I probably wasn't. I'm great, but they might say that, but it's just bitterness, I can assure you.
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't have that confidence. I'm like, I was pretty drunk that time.
Like,
pretty
good.
shit. I'm like, pretty sure in that state I was pretty shit.
Yeah, no, I've definitely had a few of those.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's very interesting because the more I'm just leading with it now. Like, even when I bump into like friends, you know, because I just moved back to Vancouver and there's people I haven't seen in 5 years and they're like, so what have you done? I'm like, I wrote a book about sex. I had a lot of sex also.
It's a big thing though. Like I said earlier, like now I've sort of come to the realization that it's done. I'm like, people are like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, in my actual day-to-day life, not a lot has changed, but I have just written a book, and it's such an incredible achievement. Like,
yeah,
go us.
But I think it's like a really also convenient way to make us continue the pursuit of like, you know, normalizing these conversations and fighting for a feminism that applies to us and everybody else. And, you know, looking, because now you just have to talk about it because that's what you do.
Yeah, because it's out there. You can't ignore it. It's all over my fucking Instagram.
Yeah, and well, you go a step further. Like, I still have like a very separate private like social media presence for like family and friends, and then I have all of the like book stuff. But it's, I mean, for you, first of all, like, you know, hats off to you because I couldn't do it. So I'm very, very proud of you for that because it takes a whole other like step to really like stop differentiating between the two.
Yeah.
But I think it's, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with this? I was just going to say that, you wrote the book now, and this is like what we're doing. And there's no way that you'll be like, oh yeah, let's talk about like something completely uninteresting or unimportant. Like, you just have to make it your mission.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's cool that I see you like on the Verve website, like Verve Up and stuff, because that's pretty much any brand of like personal activism has to sort of be like that, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I just think you have to like back yourself all the time. So I'm like, if I'm sending this message out, then there is no two ways about it. I am like all in. All sex positive, all talking about nothing but sex. Like, that's how it has to be. That's what my brand is going to be. So, you know, I have to follow suit.
Obviously, you can have other conversations in your personal life because it gets boring. I
often don't, but I can.
Oh, I'm at the point where I'm like, can we talk about something else? Like, sometimes.
No, I know. I do get you. I'm like, yeah, I've been talking about myself now for 3 weeks. So if we like literally anything else.
Does anyone else have an interesting life that sounds so fucking egotistical and self-centered?
And it's so funny because I'm one of those people that when people are like, oh, like what's going on? Like, other than the book, I'm like, oh, nothing. Like, I've got a really boring life, like, whatever. And then somebody starts talking about something. I'm like, oh my God, I've got a great story about that.
Yeah, but I think it's a nice, like, you have to find the right balance, because for sure, I think when the book was coming out, I was like, I cannot talk about Liam anymore. I cannot talk about, like, female orgasm gap anymore. Like, I'm like, okay, cool, let's, like, keep twisting that fucking knife that I was twisting in myself for, like, a couple of years writing the book, and now you guys are all joining. It's lovely. But there's no two ways about it. Like you were saying, like, you have to make it, and it's nice to have realizations when you're like, actually, I'm not that good at it. Like, you know, when you're like, fuck, why am I not saying the things? Because you gotta keep checks and balances. Like, I'm really happy when someone calls me out.
Yeah. Oh no, I love a good argument or a debate, or when someone's like, actually, you said this, and, you know, on the 18th of March 2016, and now you're contradicting yourself. I'm like, listen, but, you know, people change, but you have to be able to explain that.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I love, you know, podcasts and stuff like that, because I can't wait to have people. With you, it's a particular case of, like, we get along on a lot of topics. So I think there's very few things that we would, you know, have very strong debate about that we actually genuinely disagree on. But I want people like that on. Yeah. You know? Like, I want someone to go, like,
would that be?
Here's a whole other thing that you haven't thought about. And I'm like,
yes, like a completely different perspective.
Yeah, like, I don't, like you said, like, everything that you write is to do with women and sex, because that's our perspective. We're women who have sex. But, like, I don't know what it's like to be a trans woman or a trans man. I don't know what it's like to be a gay man. I don't have those experiences, so I cannot say a single fucking thing about them. But I can learn from them. So
100%.
And I think that's, like, the whole good thing about memoirs. And, you know, like, it's a rise everywhere. Like, there's more biopics made. We're more interested in, like, real people's stories. And I think that's, like, the positive side, is that we're stopping this whole, let's fictionalize life because our lives suck. It's like, no, our lives are pretty fucking good.
Yeah. And everybody has a different story and a different voice. And they should totally, like, we should all be encouraged to use it and tell that story. Like, I mean, whether it's super boring to you, somebody else is going to find it interesting somewhere.
Exactly. And it's not like there is a limited amount of voices that can be heard. Like, you literally...
No, exactly.
It drives me nuts when someone's like, oh, but yeah, you know me, it's not that relevant. I'm like, to whom? To what? To what are your standards for this?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like, I find it, like, especially with my stuff and the sex stuff and people, and, do you know, I can't stand it when people are like, yeah, well, I just kind of stay away from feminism because it doesn't really apply to me. I'm like, oh my fucking God. It absolutely does. You just can't open your eyes and see the bigger picture and the way that it actually affects literally everybody.
How mad at me were you when I said I wasn't a feminist in the book?
I mean, I wasn't mad. I wasn't. Because I get where you're coming from, and it's, you know, it's a label thing, and it's like.
But I am now.
There are yeah, well, no, obviously, but there are, like, extreme versions of, like, every culture and religion, and it's just one of those things, like, people just don't want to be associated with the extremists.
Yeah.
But you can't tie everybody in under this umbrella that's, like, a couple of women.
Yeah.
Like, they're giving everybody else a bad name just because of their super, super radical views.
Yeah. I totally agree.
That's just not fair.
No, and I think this is where it matters to hear more and more voices coming from more and more different parts of the spectrum, is because I would have related to that feminism earlier on.
Yeah.
You know? And it would have been better for me and people around me if I caught on to that earlier.
Yeah. For sure.
There's no other ways around it. That's it. You just have to hear people and speak to people, and we don't do that so much anymore in person because we're not taught how to, and we just relate in a different way and all that stuff. And so I think using the platforms that we have against the grain of, like, fabulousness and, you know, envy my life, blah, blah. Which still, I mean, your and my Instagram is full of, like, things that we take advantage of. Like, here is a really nice bathing suit picture or whatever. But that's just because we have to buy into the system every now and then to reach more people.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Co-opt the system and smash the patriarchy.
Amen.
What else did I want to talk to you about? So we sort of come to feminism. Oh, yes. Okay. Ageism. Da-da-da. Are you finding this like weird stream of ageism with like, what the hell do you have to say at how old are you? 24?
So there's a bit in my book, I think it's the beginning of chapter 2, where I actually say like, okay, so I'm writing this and I am 24 and I get where you're coming from when you're going to say, what the fuck kind of experience does a 24-year-old have to write a book about, you know, life and sex? But I'm not saying like, this is the be all and end all. I'm saying, you know, this is what's happened up until now. Like, this is what I've learned as a young woman, like growing up in this society and as part of this generation. This is what's happening. But I completely get what you're saying. But then I get it from the other way as well, where people are like, well, I'm not sure you'll be able to reach out to a younger audience because of the way that you've written it. And I'm like, well, I never wrote it with a target audience in mind.
Neither did I, yeah.
It was never one of those things where I'm like, right, this is specifically for like 18 to 24-year-old girls. It's not about that. It's for anybody who wants to read it, like men, women, old men, like girls when they're like 13. It's an open book, like literally. It's just for anybody. Take it as you wish and interpret away.
Yeah. But I think that's very interesting because it suggests that there's like appropriateness to it.
Yeah.
And fuck that.
No, like it's ridiculous.
It just drives me crazy because also like I feel sometimes in both directions. So I both feel like 15-year-old me would have been killing for this kind of book. Yeah. Literally, 15-year-old me who was just starting to have sex going, why do I not care about these things that people are telling me to care about? Like, why is this scary but this not? Like, all of these fucking questions that I, because of my upbringing, didn't have anyone to ask. Yeah. And so it would have just been really refreshing. So I'm sort of like, yay, you know, to any teenage girls or boys or whatever end of the gender spectrum you find yourself in. Yeah. Who are clued in, who want to know, who want to ask the questions and read, you know, someone's experience, they will read it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They will get it.
I think the thing with like ages and why it's such bullshit is that you cannot judge somebody's experience or whatever based on how old they are, because I know women in their 60s who have literally slept with 2 people.
Oh yeah, we all know
like,
women.
And like, obviously they've you know, they've got their side of events and whatever else and their stories to tell, but I'm telling you, they don't have enough fucking stories to write a book with 2 sexual partners.
Well, they might, but about other topics.
Loads. So I'm like, I've got that benefit, like,
yeah,
and I'm using that channel into writing this book. You know, some people might frown upon me sleeping with all of these people, but it's led to this book. And from that point of view, I can say, yeah, okay, I haven't been on the earth for a million years, but I have had like all of this experience like crammed into the last couple of years. Yeah. So, you know.
And I feel like I would also read a woman's book whose experience is the opposite of me, who slept with 1 or 2 men and has other things to teach me that I haven't experienced. So
yeah, why? But that's what you were saying earlier. It's so important. You have to like listen and relate to people of like all kinds.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everything that ends in ism, in the sense of discrimination, I'm just like, can we just
stop?
How is this still a thing? Like, I don't get it. And
no, I know, it's really sad.
But more than just complaining about it and saying I don't get it, like, how are people racist, ageist, or whatever ist? This is the way that we do it. This is the way that we do our little thing. We talk about what we know.
Yeah.
Like there shouldn't be any more defending like than this. We do what we know. That's it. but yeah, I think it's hard, and I that's why I like finding, you know, Instagrams like yours and just platforms like yours, in the sense that it isn't defensive. Of course, there's defensive posts when someone upsets you, and you're just like, "Fuck you too." But but it's generally
the main part.
but there's celebration in it,
Yeah.
That's what it really is about.
That's what it's all about. Like, you should celebrate your life and your experiences, whether they are 2 or 200 sexual partners or no sexual partners. Like, everything should be celebrated, and it's your sexuality at the end of the day. I think that's super, super important. Like, sexuality is such an individual concept, and it is so completely different, among people. So I mean, I think even you and I, like, whilst we're very, very similar, I reckon sexuality is totally different to us, because at the end of the day, we're not the same person.
No.
We're not meant to be the same person.
No.
Like, that's what's so beautiful about the world and all of the different people. Like, everybody is so individual, and that's what makes it so special.
And I think more than that, even you as a one person, or me as myself, my sexuality is changing all the time.
Yeah. Ever growing.
And like, sometimes I'm like, ooh, yeah, totally into that. Other times, nope, I'm done.
Yep, no. Get it out.
Yeah.
Stop touching me.
and so it's just not fair to... This is my problem with labels, and you already know this, is like, I can't... The fact that we still think that way is, I think, hindering a lot of the change that we should be going through, is the fact that we still want a name for everything, because if we don't know what it's called, we don't know what to do with it.
Just live and let live.
Sit in it. But yeah, it's just, oh God, I wish there was like a way to have this like conversation as like a massive cuddle puddle, just like bring everyone who's ready to sort of be that way. Just like, let's bring all of us in the like cloud planet, or like a real place, and just...
I would love that.
How great would that be, hey? Just like,
amazing.
That's what I daydream about.
I love it.
Great. Well, is there any main topic that you think we haven't covered? Was there something that you wanted to address now that we have the platform?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything. I think if I come up with anything, then you're just going to have me on again.
Ooh, I would love that.
Volume 2.
My God, between our books and our blogs and our Instagrams and everything, we're just going to be like every 5 years.
There's always going to be something to talk about.
Great.
We'll never get boring.
No. So I'll make sure to put your website in the description, and your Instagram and your Twitter.
Fantastic.
So if you guys have any questions for Nell or I, tweet at us.
Hit me up.
DM us, but not creepy, please.
Dick pic.
Oh, we haven't talked about that. How shitty are your DMs? Like, to end on a funny note.
Oh my God. Every single day. I'm like, so you obviously you've got the straight up lines of the people who you know, and then there's like the request bit. I'm like, there are so many people in there every day, and they're just like, hi, hello, hi, great body. And then there are the dick pics. I'm like, no woman ever met the man of her dreams because he sent her a picture of his hard penis over Instagram.
Let alone man of her dreams, not even the man of her fucking minute. Like, that's not how you, like, know.
Literally. I'm like, no time for that. Block.
It's like, blah, blah, has sent you a picture, accept to open. I was like, as if. Like, no.
Yeah. No thanks, hon.
It's the worst. Oh, please, people, be better. Be better.
And it's so impolite.
And unnecessary. Like, what's the benefit?
Literally. Like, and I don't think, what are they going to get out of it?
Exactly.
It's just sexual harassment, and I will not stand for it.
Exactly. Great. So if you guys want to hear Nell and I talk about any particular topics, we would love to indulge.
Yes, absolutely.
So let us know. In the meantime, thank you so much. I can't wait to read your book.
Oh, I can't wait as well. Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
Yes, it has. And thank you guys for listening. We will be with you next Friday. In the meantime, go have some drinks, enjoy your weekend, and love to you all. Bye.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app. free for iOS and Android.